Okay, so today I'm demoing my signal flare pedal. What can I say? But it's essentially, designed to sound like a JCM 800 Marshall in a box. You plug it into a clean amp, turn it on. All of a sudden, you have a nice, sturdy sounding amp. Before I go into all the details on this pedal, I'll just tell you about the rig I'm playing right now. That's my dry tone. It's basically just my SG going through my Blues Junior. Set, well, if I hit it hard, there's a little bit of crunch, but just a little bit. Otherwise, it's mostly clean. Yeah, and in that demo at the start there, you heard a bit of, boss delay, and I have a clone of the Electro Harmonics Electric Mistress flanger going on there for, that Van Halen sound. But no, the star of the show today is this thing. So this is based off of, well, technically it's based off of two pedals. The original design is from the Marshall Governor, which was, Marshall's first attempt at making a pedal that would sound like one of their amps, but, in a box that you can plug into any amp and get that kind of driven tone. Which, for such an early stomp box that, was doing that thing, it actually got quite a bit right for getting that gain tone. Dial this back. Like the original Marshall Governor had volume, drive, and 3-band EQ. This is more closely related, however, to the JHS Angry Charlie, which was basically a hot-rodded version of the Governor. The EQ, the tone stack that's in the Governor is passive design, which, in clones I built of it, that EQ didn't really sound all that great. But the JHS Angry Charlie uses a active EQ, so all the controls, the bass, middle, and treble, they cut and, as well as boost frequencies, which is what I have here. However, there's a variation of the Angry Charlie that JHS makes called the Andy Timmons, or the at sign, which is like a stripped down Angry Charlie, but it has a switch to change between 3 different compression levels. Basically, I just made a combination of the 3 of those pedals. I took the best from each. I kept some things similar to the original Governor, but then I borrowed the active 3-band EQ, and then I decided I would add in that diode clipping switch, because that seemed like a cool idea. And one thing you won't see in here is a little trim pot, which actually affects the presence on this. So if you have, say, like an amp with a spiky upper mid-range or something, you can dial back that trim pot, and you'll get a drive tone that isn't as spiky there. Or if you're in a running through a rather dull sounding amp, not dull, but like a darker sounding amp, you can dial it back up, and your presence won't be dialed back. Makes sense? Makes sense to me. I designed it, or went through the design and changed it to make it more my own. Anywho, so the controls here are volume, drive, bass, middle, and treble. And then there's the 3-way switch here. When it's in the middle position like that, it's LED clipping, which emulates sort of like higher headroom Marshalls, like 100 watters. When it's down, It's a combination of MOSFET and germanium diode clipping, which gives JHS would describe it as like a 50 watt as opposed to 100 watt, which compresses more and it's spongier feeling. When it's up, it simulates like a 20, 25 watt or 18 watt Marshall. That's just regular diode clipping, your standard 1 in 914 or whatever type of diodes. But you probably don't care about all that technical stuff, so I'm just going to give you a sample of sounds. Here it is at a relatively low gain setting. Bump up a little bit of treble and range. So that's a low gain setting. I should also mention here that I made sure that this pedal has JFET buffer inputs and outputs. Like the pedal's true bypass. I know I've explained this with all my other pedals that I do this to, but explaining it again here, so live with it. But basically I made it so that the impedance is good on the input of the pedal, and good at the output of the pedal, so it'll play well with the rest of your rig. And it's not as much evident here, but if I crank up the gain as opposed to the lower gain setting, if I roll back the volume on my guitar, it does that cleanup thing really nicely. As many of you who follow my videos know, I love that. Which I know not everyone does that kind of thing, but for someone who enjoys using the controls on the guitar, they're there for a reason. Like this just works so well with them, and like I said, it works better with higher gain settings on the pedal, and you're not going to get perfectly clean tones, but it's just a perfectly easy way of quickly getting a lead and clean sound just from your fingertips. That's how they did it in the old days, and I still think there's a lot of value in that. Not to say that if you want to step on a boost in front of the pedal to get a lead boost, that's a bad idea either. I'm not saying that at all, in fact. may be a bit overly compressed and everything there, but you get the point. That was just my archetypal D going into the signal flare. Yeah, so that might be a bit over the top, but you get the point. So I tend to prefer tones that have like a lot of mid-range in them and upper mids, and you know, I want what I play to actually hear and stand out and cut through mixes and everything. Like, even though I'm not much of a live player yet, it's you know, I design my pedals with a consciousness of I want this pedal to help you get heard. However, for those of you who prefer the scoop tones, you can get that with this too. Dial back the mid-range. I'll just put the highs and lows there a bit. And I'm going to add some extra compression there with the MOSFET setting. You know, so you can, like, if you're into that scoopy sound, which is cool, this is my personal opinion, cool in certain contexts, but not what you want it to have it all the time. But if you don't want that scoopy, high gain tone, this will definitely do that too. And this actually might be a more appropriate time to use the archetype. But you can hear the difference. So, you know, if you're planning on using like a mid-range boost ahead of it, you may want to have a scoopier sound. You know, it's what else can I say about this? Well, I guess I might as well do a more extreme setting with the scoop, but I'll dial the mids back up, maybe get the highs and everything. Turn the gain. Okay, sorry for the cut there. I had someone call me on my phone, and unfortunately, you know, at this time, my phone is the only thing I have to film with. So as I was saying, I went through I was going through the different settings there on the switch. When it's in the up position with just the normal diode compression, that's something that you want when you want that extra compression to fill out the sound more, like a wider tone, I guess you would say. I think it would work best if you're playing in like a smaller band, like a three-piece guitar, drums, bass kind of thing. The down position is kind of like a middle setting with a slight asymmetrical clipping, and then up, the asymmetrical clipping with MOSFETs and one germanium diode, and then up is the LED clipping. That's the most open, the most transparent's the wrong word, but it's the one that lets most of your dynamics through, even at higher gain settings. I would use that one just if you were playing in like a larger band, like even if you have just like an extra guitarist around, anything more than that, like just to let your dynamics and attack poke through a bit more. As you can hear, like when you have more compression, your volume level goes down a bit, so you have to compensate with the volume control. Thankfully, with the signal flare design, I instead of having a lossy tone stack like the original Governor has, this has plenty of volume on top. So even with the most compression, you're fine. You'll have plenty of level to make up for that. One thing I will note is that with an active EQ, because it boosts as well as cuts, sometimes you do have to be wary when boosting that you'll get extra noise in certain frequencies depending on how you boost them, especially with the treble control. Like, yeah, if you have the gain too high when the treble is dimed, or the treble too high when the gain is dimed, you start getting that. So just be wary of that. Like the little presence trimmer on the inside, you can, sort of play with it a bit and it'll help, but just don't go too extreme with your treble when you have higher gain settings. And with the bass control, you may have just heard that there. Depending on how you set it, if you have it at higher bass settings on higher gain settings, you may hear a little weird thing with that, where it starts sounding a little quieter on the bass end. That's perfectly normal. That's just the low end getting so high and going into, it's just compressing. That's just one of those things where when the circuit isn't designed to let all that low end go through. Like if it was, it'd be way too bassy. So in order to keep like the Marshall voice, you have to have certain parts of the circuit lop off a bit of bass. But then when you try pushing through a lot of bass, such as when you boost it with the bass control here, it'll start compressing sometimes. So that's completely normal. This kind of thing. Yeah, just a little note for you for anyone who wants to crank up the bass and gent or whatever the kids call it these days, and just don't rely too much on your guitar for a low end. Get a bass and play through a bass pedal if you want that monstrous low end. Apologies to all of you 7, 8, 9 string guitar players out there. If you follow my channel, you know that I tend to make pedals that are focused on like more old school tones. But if you like my pedals, all the more power to you. But basically, don't ride the bass too high. This is a guitar pedal, not a bass pedal. Although some guitar pedals work well with bass. Am I going anywhere with this? Yes, I am. It's just a great JCM 800 in a box style pedal. What more can I say? I tend to go for more like plexi style Marshall tones if you would want my personal opinion. But honestly, for something that does high gain and even the lower gain settings are very, very usable, like down there. If you're going for something like 70s, 80s tones, like this will do all that plus higher gain stuff. I suppose you could play metal with it with the scoopier tones. Gain. That's completely out of my realm. But for me, like I would definitely use this for playing stuff like ZZ Top or in a pinch AC/DC or other things. Like I might not have the gain as high, but it still sounds great. Anyways, that's all I have to say about the Signal Flare. So if you're interested in it, contact me, and this pedal can be yours, or I can make more for you, or all the standard stuff that pedal builders say. Contact me if you're interested. You can follow me on Tom Freeman Audio Effects on Facebook, Instagram. Tom Freeman or tfaudioeffects.com is my website. Email me at tomfreemanaudioeffects@gmail.com. And last but not least, hit subscribe and click the notification button to watch more videos like this and hear me ramble on with other effects. Anyways. That's all for now.